Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. It's actually a very good time to be dividing snowdrops. They finished flowering, but they're still in the green. They're still full of life and vigour. So when you lift a clump and just pull it apart like that and replant them, next January, they will flower better than they would have done if you just left them where they were. Come on. Why, Nigel, is my ball in there? Nigel is working on the theory that if you plant a nice slimy little tennis ball, it may go forth and multiply. Hasn't worked yet, Nigel.
This week, Carol is starting a major new project, helping a young couple turn their empty patch into a beautiful garden.
We've got a year, haven't we? And you can do so much in there, and I really feel we can transform the place.
Jo is in Northumberland, meeting a gardener who's made a stunning garden, despite having to deal with the extremes of hot, dry summers and bitterly cold winters.
I think that you can make a garden anywhere, whatever the conditions, providing you look at the native plants that grow round about.
Yeah, I can see why you moved here and did it. It's absolutely stunning.
And we meet a Cotswold grower whose boyhood enthusiasm for bees and butterflies has led him to amass Buddleia in all their fabulous forms.
When butterflies come into the garden, they're actually looking for a nectar source. They're sort of on a pub crawl. They come here for the beer festival.
This pot should be giving me some spring colour, with tulips coming through, which will flower in a few weeks' time, and plenty of colour underneath. Well, as you can see, there's absolutely nothing, and the reason is I forgot. I could and should have planted tulips as late as January. I didn't. But the situation can be salvaged. You can still get spring colour into your containers as late as now, and the basis of the best spring colour, I think, comes from violas. Not a grand plant or fancy, but the colours can be so sumptuous. Look at these beautiful, rich, velvety tones. Because this display is only going to be here for about 6 to 8 weeks, we don't need a lot of very rich soil. But I'm just topping up what was already in here, as much as anything else, to raise the level. And then when it comes to the summer and autumn planting, all this soil will go and be replaced to give it new goodness. Now, the centrepiece is Euphorbia amygloides, which is a variety called Ephanthia, which I haven't grown before, but these amygloides are all fairly similar. And what they have is this good, strong, russet colour with the intensity of Euphorbia. No other plant gives you that electricity, particularly in April. So that can go in the middle like that. It's not going to get much bigger over the next few weeks. I've thought of adding heucheras, entirely for the foliage. This is a variety called mahogany. I think it's just purpley, magenta-y enough to complement the colours I want from the violas. But I'll pop that in there, like that. With large pots like this, threes work very well because it gives room for a variety of plants, but it also gives it a rhythm. So we'll go here. Now, because I want an instant hit of colour, I'm going to cram every available space. There's no attempt to let plants grow into the space. This has got to work from the minute I plant it till the middle of May, by which time it can be exhausted. It doesn't matter. So it's a sprint, not a marathon. And we'll just open that out, and we'll just start to plant them in and around. Violas and pansies, the same family, but pansies are bigger. And blowsier to an extent, but I'm not looking for subtlety. I want strength of colour and a little bit of drama. Perfect for this mix. Well, I think that's looking good now. It'll get better over the next few weeks, but the truth is, this is instant gardening. and none the worse for it. But Carol is embarking on a project which is the exact opposite, because she will be guiding a couple over the next year on the development of their garden. They know what they want, but they don't know how to get there.
Dan and Dominique bought their first home together 3 years ago. With internal renovations over, it's time to tackle the garden. It's north-facing, and at 150 square metres, it's your average UK back garden. It's pretty much a blank canvas.
This is the year we're going to try and sort out the mud plane, as we're calling it.
About this summer, we're going to get the garden fixed.
The gardens I loved when I was little were the ones that were completely wild, like cottagey gardens. It would be great if this was just a riot of colours and textures and, you know, height. So we'd like some lawns so we could sit out and have a picnic and play.
Dan and Dominique have made a start with some raised beds and some chickens, but they've got no idea where to turn next. This is their first garden. They want it to be a place where they can grow food, enjoy beautiful flowers, relax with their daughter and entertain. So I'm going to spend the year helping them out.
We're kind of hoping that Carol's going to bring sort of knowledge of how we make the most of plants, which plants actually are going to work well together. So we would love to think we were up and running by the end of this season, really.
Their garden's already split into 3 main areas: a patio, an area perfect for a lawn, and a veg plot. I can't wait to get stuck in with them. Hello. Well, I'm Carol.
Hey.
And Dan.
Hi.
And you're Dominique.
Yeah, Dom.
And this is Finna. Hiya, Finna. And this is your veg patch.
Yeah, this is it at the moment, yeah.
So is that a big priority for you, growing your own
Yeah,
food?
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
we get eggs regularly, but we've never really utilised the raised beds all through the seasons. Like we have one hit in the summer, and that's it. And then it's like this for the rest of the time.
Raised beds are perfect for small spaces. And I know that this summer, with careful planning, these veg beds will be much more productive. But the other areas will be more of a challenge. Come and show me the rest of your garden. The middle section is where Dan and Dom want to create their lawn. It's also the place for them to indulge in flowers. I think the thing is, when you're taking on a new garden, you need to really find out about your soil. It's always going to be a sort of compromise. And sometimes, if you're lucky, a joining together of what you can grow and what you want to grow. So you've got quite heavy clay soil by the look of it. It's liable to be alkaline.
So does that push us down a certain type of plant? Or?
Well, if it is alkaline, you're not going to be able to grow masses of rhododendrons and azaleas. And anyway, they wouldn't go here. Yeah. They wouldn't look right, would they? As you look around, you know, you've got this sort of little green tapestry beginning to emerge, but a lot of it is weeds. Now, their country name is pilewort. You can see why it gets its vernacular name. Every single one of these little rhizomes will make a totally fresh plant, so really we need to get rid of them. And that's true of any perennial weed. And a perennial weed is one that will just come up year after year after year. Dan and Dominique have their work cut out digging up those weeds if we're to lay a lawn next time I come. Meanwhile, I've spotted a plant that could be rejuvenated.
At our wedding, we had our table names as herbs, and at the end, a good friend of ours gathered them up and gave them back as a wedding present in a lovely planter.
I think you could resurrect it. Let's get rid of the moss, first of all. All you're going to do is bend these little branches down. But then if we pile some of this soil, which is loam-based, and it's much more the sort of thing that this would love. So I've just got the ends of these protruding, but it's still going to try and fling itself up. So if we just weight those little branches down with a stone, and we can do it with all of them, actually, right the way round here. And you should get new plants growing on each of these branches. So that's your first bit of propagating, your first new plants. And I think you need a nursery bed.
Yeah.
Somewhere you can divide stuff, push it in, yeah? Shall we go and have a look? I brought you some snowdrops, so we'd be able to do that too. Because anything you get given, anything you want to divide, any seedlings you want to plant out, they'll just increase in size in here. This nursery bed will be a true investment for the future of Dan and Dom's garden. It's the first step for them to get growing.
It'll be very interesting to see how the garden develops over the coming year. Well, let's see how the pond is looking after its winter. It's been full of frogs, so the wildlife is good. But at this stage of the year, the important thing is to do a bit of spring cleaning. The water is still cold, even if the days are warm, so it's a bit early to be planting anything. Wait till the water doesn't feel cold to the touch, and believe you me, that feels freezing. The really important thing at this stage is to get rid of all the dead material, because it will rot down and make the nutrient levels in the water too rich. And that feeds the algae. And then there's a whole series of problems. Now, I don't know if you can see, but we've got a lot of leaves actually on the bottom here. Ooh, look at that gunk. That's exactly what you don't want in a pond. Decomposing vegetation. It's fine to be cleaning them even if you've got frog spawn, because at the moment it's in clumps and you can see it, and it doesn't mind being moved as long as you're just gentle. I've got water mint and water forget-me-not, which is spreading very well, and that's good for wildlife, but a little too well. So by weeding it back, I'm creating scope for more to grow and leaving some more open water. Rather than take this to the compost heap, where it will eventually go, I'm going to tip it out by the side of the pond for a day or so. And that's to let all the little creatures go back into the water, and they will. And it is actually teeming with life. There's a dragonfly larvae. Now, you can have a garden pond of almost any size in any garden, and they add a kind of calmness and balance to a garden. But Joe has been visiting a series of gardens that are working with extremes. And this week, he's in Northumberland, looking at a garden facing huge challenges.
Hot, dry summers and bone-chilling winters, Northumberland has the most extreme climate. And here in this hidden valley, the weather plays particularly harsh tricks, which makes gardening all the more challenging. But look at this. Huge borders, mainly built up of perennials in drifts and blocks, tearing up and combining beautifully together. Now, this is a frost hollow. It can get to more than 10 degrees lower here than the surrounding areas. It's a real geographical cold spot, which makes this garden even more impressive.
Garden writer Susie White and her husband David Oakley have been developing their garden here over the last 3 years. But the conditions have proved tough, even for an experienced plantswoman like Susie.
Susie, how extreme is the weather here? How cold does it get?
It's pretty extreme. It can be -18, we've known it in the winter, and plus 30 in the summer, so that's almost a 50-degree swing,
Yeah.
which really makes it difficult for plants.
So do you get a lot of snow here?
Yes, we get quite a lot of snow. We've been snowed in for 2 weeks, that's the most. Because we're in the bottom of the valley, the cold air runs down the hillsides and collects in the bottom, making it really icy in winter.
And did you know that before you started to garden here?
Well, I did have an idea, but actually the amount took me by surprise. Yes.
It looks great.
It's beautiful.
I have to say, I mean, you can plant on quite a big scale here. These borders are enormous.
I wanted to have the feeling of an exploded meadow so that it fits in with the local meadows and didn't look out of place. I have to make sure it's meticulously weeded in March, and then it's sort of set for the summer. And then once the plants have grown up, it means that they prevent the light getting and a lot of weed seeds. So
you're actually planting really densely
Very.
together. Are there any other advantages of that?
well, it prevents water loss off the soil. So in a place that gets so hot in the summer, that's very, very helpful.
Yeah. That's interesting that you pack the plants tighter to actually to retain moisture. You would have thought that they'll be
Yes.
taking all the moisture out of the soil.
Well, I suppose they are feeding on the moisture, but they're preventing water loss and evaporation from the soil.
Yeah.
And they're shading, so they're actually keeping the soil a bit cooler.
Susie's also cleverly designed her planting to work almost like a calendar, moving through from early summer to late autumn.
I had hot colours at the front, fading to cooler colours at the back to increase the sense of space,
Yeah, it's a good trick, that,
to
isn't
make it feel larger. So I literally just, painted with plants.
Yeah, you just had lots of
Yes.
plants. That must have been really good fun.
Oh, fun. And very free, like painting on a canvas.
How do you go about choosing the right plants? Is it trial and error?
I looked at the plants that were growing in local meadows and then chose cultivated varieties of those, as well as lots of native plants, so they are tough. There's the angel's fishing rods,
Yeah.
which I never thought I'd be able to grow in this frost hollow, but they're surviving happily. I'm restricted by the amount of types of thyme I can grow. There's one thyme, though, that has done really well, and that's Thymus longicornis, and I've put it on either side of the path to the greenhouse, and it's spread in this huge mat, so that's lovely.
Now, what would your advice be to someone who faces challenges like this?
You can't get away from the fact that you need to work hard, but I think that you can make a garden anywhere, whatever the conditions, providing you look at the native plants that grow round about and try not to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, I can see why you moved here and did it. It's absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
We've had some absolutely fantastic spring weather. And these warm days mean that the tender plants that I've been protecting all winter are growing well. And of course, it's a good idea to put them outside. But a word of warning. If you get good weather at this time of year during the day, it tends to mean cold nights. And the difference in temperature can be about 20 degrees or more. And this poor, tender growth is not yet hardened off. It's not equipped to deal with that kind of temperature shift. So if you're putting plants outside, have some protection to hand. Horticultural fleece is ideal. You could use old net curtains. Anything that can breathe, but will form a layer of warm air around the plant. And all you have to do, if you feel the chill coming on in the evening, is just wrap around the plant, like this fuchsia. If it's going to be windy, just tie it loosely with a piece of twine. And that's enough protection to allow that new growth to harden off. And in a few weeks' time, you won't have to worry about it. Now, you may not have any tender plants to protect, but here are some jobs you can be doing this weekend.
Slugs love a juicy young seedling and can rip through a whole tray of them in a matter of hours. If you set beer traps by pouring beer into a container or two and setting these amongst the plants, the slugs will always go for the beer and drown. It's tempting to hang on to every last seedling, but now is the time to be ruthless and thin them so that they are evenly spread and each individual has plenty of room to develop. And if you're growing in plugs or soil blocks, take them down to one healthy plant per unit. You'll get better plants as a result and save yourself a lot of time and trouble later on. Although the ground is beginning to warm up and you can start sowing salad crops now, they will germinate and develop slowly. However, if you put out young plants, and if you haven't raised any yourself, you can buy these, they will develop more quickly. Space them about 6 inches apart and then protect them from the cold with fleece or a cloche, and they'll give you a harvest while your seed-sown ones are developing.
I'm going to prune my Buddleias. And the reason for doing this is not just to promote new flowers, because this is Buddleia davidii, which flowers on new growth, but also to keep the shape, because if you leave it, it gets bigger and bigger, and the flowers remain taller and taller, higher and higher up, and down below, it's shaded out, and you just get this rather woody, untidy, scrubby shape. So we keep a good shape and have new flowers. About 10 years ago, I would have advised pruning it right down to the bottom buds and keeping it really compact so it was all new growth. But increasingly, I feel that it's better to just take off about a half or a maximum of 2/3 of Buddleias. That keeps them bigger and also takes away competition for light from surrounding plants. Now, when you're pruning, the same rules apply to Buddleia as anything else, which is that the weakest growth is cut hardest. So here we've got a really weak stem next to a really strong one. So the strong one, I'll just take off there and there. But the weak one, I'll take off right down at the bottom. There we go. Now, I've got quite a few Buddleias here at Longmeadow, ranging in colour from pure white through to a lovely, rich, intense purple. But Andrew Bullock in the Cotswolds has got hundreds of them.
I think my sort of interest in Buddleias goes back to when I was a child, coming home from school in my grandparents' garden. Every July, August, this sort of plant would appear, and then these wonderful creatures would land on it, which of course were butterflies. For anyone who's sort of interested in wildlife, then this plant is a bit of a must, really. When butterflies come into the garden, they're actually looking for a nectar source. So you can think of it that they're sort of on a pub crawl. Each butterfly's going looking for nectar. And when they come in here, they can have a drink, they can go to another garden, get another drink, they can top up. So if you've all got Buddleias in your garden, the butterflies can do the pub crawl, and then they can come here for the beer festival. What they're trying to do, particularly in late summer, is build up for hibernation. We have all the hibernating British butterflies here. We have peacock, tortoiseshell, comma, butterflies that hibernate. We've got about 30 species, but over 100 cultivars. I think it's about 127. The spectrum of colours for Buddleias is quite large. You can have white, all shades of blue, from a very pale blue, deep blue, into purple. There's some nice sort of pinks into maroon. And then the Weyeriana Buddleia produces a lovely yellow plant later in the summer, and also a creamy apricot colour. So there's quite a good palette. This is one of my favourites. It's Shire Blue. It was one we bred here about 10 years ago. I like it because it's got really large creamy blue panicles and really good grey foliage. It's a nice one to have the back of a border because it can give you good height, or you can prune it lower and bring it more forward. I tend to prune Buddleias April time. Some people like to do it at the end of winter in February, March, but I find if you do that, then the Buddleias bloom in July. By doing them a little bit later, say April, they then tend to bloom in August. That's the best time for attracting the butterflies. If you've got 2 or 3 Buddleias, why not stagger the pruning? A good thing to keep the Buddleia blooming is to keep deadheading it. If you're very clever, you can keep Buddleias flowering from July right through to October. Where you've got a triangle of flowers and the 2 smaller ones either side haven't flowered yet or just coming into flower and the one in the centre has gone over, take the centre one out, then the energy goes into the 2 side ones. Or if the whole head has gone over, take the whole head off and then the plant will carry on flowering elsewhere. I feel that everybody should have at least 1 Buddleia in their garden. They're beautiful things. They're good to teach children about wildlife. I mean, let's face it, if it wasn't for a Buddleia back when I was a child, I may not be here now. What we must do is fill our gardens with nectar-attracting plants, and then we can do our bit for future generations so they can enjoy these wonderful jewels of the air, which is what we have here today.
Come on, you old softy. Come on, let's move this.
It's already been a fabulous year for rhubarb. We picked rhubarb and ate it on Christmas Day. And what you see here is the 3rd picking. When you're collecting rhubarb, don't use a knife, but pull it. You just take a stem, hold it at the bottom, and tear it off. Rhubarb has a delicious astringency. There's no pudding better than a hot rhubarb crumble. The crumble itself just slightly gooey. It's soaking up the juices. Absolutely delicious, maybe with a little bit of cream. Well, that is it for today. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. The primroses have been fabulous this year. I think as good as I can ever remember them. And of course, the rain that we had over winter did them a lot of good. They like the damp as long as the drainage is reasonably good. And I always come back to primroses as my favourite flower of all, not just because of their simplicity and elegance, but because they're so full of hope. For me, this is the high point of the year.
And this week we've got plenty to enjoy. Carol meets a daffodil breeder who has spent 40 years rescuing heritage varieties, but has also bred hundreds of new varieties.
The real fashions at the moment are multi-head ones, different colours. The more modern ones, there are stunning shapes and colours.
We visit a dahlia enthusiast who's been growing show-stopping displays since he was a boy.
You can grow little ones which are no bigger than 2 inches across, right up to the giants, which are dinner plate size. They've just got that wow factor.
And Joe has been in Lancashire, finding out how to make a stunning garden from an inhospitable rock face.
There is a magical staging about a rock garden that you will never achieve with anything else.
Come on. I guess this is a situation that a lot of us have had to deal with, which is a honeysuckle that has not been trained well from the outset and has become a completely entangled mess. Honeysuckles are woodland plants, and they want to scramble and twine and sprawl. We've got a number in the spring garden, growing up trees and through shrubs that are completely happy. So you can't change the nature of the plant. But if you get a situation like this, where it is definitely past any kind of reasonable training, you have to take radical action, and you can do with a honeysuckle. Now, this particular honeysuckle is Lonicera periclininum belgica, and it's got pink and white flowers that appear June, July. Now, all this top growth, where it comes up and then arches over itself like the crest of a wave, and in fact, in this case, climbing up into the Portuguese laurel, is a sign that it's got past a controllable point. What we want is just 2 dimensions only, growing up the wall along the wires. Now, it should be pruned immediately after flowering. So by pruning it now, there is a real risk that we may lose most of the flowers for this year. So that's just a warning. Now, there's a nest in here. Now, this is last year's, so I'm not destroying anybody's home. And this was a blackbird that produced its young quite happily in there, but I'm afraid it's time for it to go, so that can come down. There we are, lined with mud, so we'll put that on there. Now, let's get in. Well, of course, that isn't going to just pull away neatly. So what I need to do is cut away more and then take it out piecemeal. I suppose the crucial thing to stress is don't be frightened of a job like this. You're not going to harm the plant. You can apply it not just to honeysuckle, but some of the clematis, like Clematis montana, that can get really a tangle and mass of growth. But with the early flowering clematis, wait till after it's flowered, because it'll be flowering in a month's time. Wait till it's flowered, and then as soon as it's done, you can apply this operation to it. It is important when you've done a major prune like this to give it a really good drink. Honeysuckle like dampish feet. They don't like to get too dry, and then mulch it. So it gets a bit of a feed, and it will start growing again and will very quickly re-establish itself. We planted these pseudo-narcissi about 15 years ago, and they were very slow to develop. I remember there was an original 50 bulbs and just 2 or 3 flowers, and gradually they've built up over the years. And now they're getting established, and I know that in about 20, 30 years' time, this will be a sheet of these lovely, delicate yellow flowers. Carol is continuing to look at the iconic plants of our gardens and the people who've devoted their lives to developing them by a visit to a daffodil grower in Cornwall.
Cornwall is a rugged county, renowned for its floral landscapes. But in spring, the ground is set alight with a gorgeous, brilliant yellow of 1 million daffodils. Born into a dynasty of daffodil growers, Ron Scamp has dedicated 40 years of his life preserving and promoting these blazing beauties. And it's because of Ron's preeminent work and his enduring passion that gardeners now have access to an extraordinary kaleidoscope of colours and forms.
I've been involved with daffodils for almost all my life.
Yeah.
It started when I was a very young boy, when we lived on the farm.
Like many children in Cornwall, Ron's childhood was filled with daffodils. Flower farms dotted the coastline, and it was during this time he developed a deep passion for heritage varieties.
During the war years, all of these farms, the flower farms, they were ordered to remove daffodils from their fields so that they could grow vegetables. They couldn't sell them, so they got deposited in hedges and banks and places like that. A great deal were lost or still remain in the hedges.
These things that were almost on the point of extinction are being brought back now by you and people like you.
Some of these old ones, they really have a
There's
soft
something
spot in my heart.
very special, isn't there,
Absolutely, yes.
about heritage varieties?
Indeed.
So this is one of these heritage varieties. It's beautiful.
Yes, this is Bath Flame, and it's one that I used to pick as a lad.
I mean, what is it about the quality of the flower that's so very special? I mean, the clump is gorgeous, elegant, isn't it?
It's got that lovely bright colour, and of course it's got those beautiful petals that wave about in the wind.
And if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be able to grow this. I mean, you have got that eye, haven't you? You've got that sort of discernment.
I've got that passion, shall we
Yeah.
say.
Yes.
And yeah, I'd like to think that I saved it from extinction.
It's a very, very beautiful thing to pass forward to future generations.
It is indeed, and we hope to keep it going.
Ron has helped save scores of heritage daffodils from being lost forever. But his work doesn't stop there. He's also at the forefront of breeding new varieties, and he's recognised internationally for introducing some of the very best modern hybrids into our gardens. That's what you call a splendiferous daffodil, isn't that lovely?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. This is Gallipoli Dawn.
This is your trial field, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, this is where we plant out all our unnamed seedlings.
So every one of the plants in here is from crosses that you've made?
That's right, yep, they're all crosses and going back almost 20 years, some of them.
Really, as long
yes,
as that?
Yes, yeah. Well, it takes 4 to 5 years from seed to the first flower, and then 5 to 10 years trialling it to make sure that it's going to be a good, sound variety for your garden.
Because I suppose it's all very well if they look beautiful, but what you want is more than that, isn't it?
It's what we look for in a new variety.
Yeah.
Is good foliage, a good grower. The flowers need to be above the foliage so that you can see the flowers nicely and have a good long life.
What do you start off with? Do you say, oh, I like that and I like that? Or do you have this idea in your head of what you want to create?
Well, you have an idea, and that's why you use selective parents.
Yeah.
But as a man said, you dream of things that never were and say, why not?
You're quite on the cutting edge of daffodil breeding, aren't you? What's the fashion? Which direction are these daffodils going in?
The real fashions and the hopes at the moment are multi-head ones, different colours, white and reds, white and pinks, and also the split corollas. Some of the more modern ones, there are stunning shapes and colours. There's a lot of things to come.
Yeah, but I bet there'll be quite a few Ron Scamp daffodils.
Well, I hope so. I always say it's 40% research, 60% inspiration. Yes. And a lot of luck.
These are cabbages that either have started to bolt and never got eaten, or never really developed a head, and now it's too late to eat them. So, time to clear them and create space for another set of crops. And here are some other jobs that you can be getting on with this weekend.
It's a good time now to prune figs. All this year's crop is already present as tiny pea-sized fruit on the shoots. So if you remove all this growth, you won't get any figs this year. However, take out any crowded or crossing branches and try to create a shape that is as flat against a wall or fence as you can, and this will mean that as much light and air will get to the plant as possible. Once your amaryllis has finished flowering, don't throw them away, as with the right care, they'll flower again next year. Cut off the spent flower heads to stop the energy going into seeds. You can leave the stem on, although I prefer to remove it simply because it looks better. But let the leaves fully develop and don't remove them. Water it weekly and give it a general purpose feed every week or two. And then when the risk of frost has completely gone, you can stand it outside in a sheltered spot. If you've stored your dahlias over winter, it's time to take them out and check them over. Make sure none of the tubers are rotten or have dried out, and if they have, discard them. Pot up the good tubers so the crowns are just proud of the surface of the soil. Water them and put them somewhere warm, and this will encourage new shoots, which can then be used for cuttings.
Now, you may not be storing any dahlias, but it's still a good time to buy them and check them out using the same criteria. First of all, you must be able to see the tubers. If you can't see them, don't buy them. The second thing is feel them, give them a squeeze. They should feel firm. If they feel at all dried up or squidgy, don't buy them. I adore dahlias. They're a plant that grab people and dominate their lives. And I think Darren Everest in Kent would be proud to be included in that number.
Dahlias give you that splash of colour when the rest of the garden is starting to look a little bit tired. The dahlias come to life and they give you those flowers right from middle of July, right up to the first frosts. I love the variation in size. You can grow little ones which are no bigger than 2 inches across, right up to the giants, which are dinner plate size, and all the colours, a mixture of colours that you could possibly wish for. They've just got that wow factor. My earliest recollection of dahlias was when I used to walk down my granddad's garden and I saw rows of dahlias growing, lovely colours, and that's what sort of first got me interested in them. I started growing when I was probably about 11 or 12, and then more seriously from 15 I was showing at the national show in the novice classes. I just enjoy growing them. This variety is called Kenora Sunset. It's one of my favourites. I think you can guess why it's called Kenora Sunset. The blend of red and yellow is, I think, really quite stunning. When you're exhibiting dahlias, you normally have to have 3 in a vase, and they should all be exactly the same and matching. It's quite difficult to match because obviously they've got the different colours, and between each bloom there are differences. So when it comes to showing it, quite often the judges will go for a plain white or yellow as opposed to a bicoloured, whereas I think to match 3 of these is far more of an achievement. I treat the dahlia world of exhibiting in the same way that I look at the sort of football leagues. You've got the Premier Division of the top growers, the same as the Man Uniteds and the Chelseas of the world. I like to put myself a bit further down the table where you get the odd victory against them. You do quite well in the other classes, but you know, I wouldn't want to be the best grower in the country, because when you just win the odd trophy, the satisfaction of winning is greater than if you was winning all the time. Really, what a dahlia needs is plenty of water. Early on in the season, some high nitrogen feed for a few weeks, and then a balanced feed, and then just as the flowers are starting to come out, a high potash feed. The main pest is an earwig, and I have a cunning little trick to stop that on all my flowers, which is petroleum jelly. Just get a little bit on your finger, and then just rub it up and down the stem for about 4 inches, or what's that, 10 centimetres, just below the flower, and that will stop the earwigs from climbing up the stem and chomping on your on your prize-winning flowers. This year I've got 660 plants. All my spare time, certainly this time of year, is spent up at the allotment. You know, probably on average 3 hours a day. You need to spend the time with them to get them to a really good standard. My wife is exceptionally supportive. Even my children come up and help. It's very difficult letting other people, whether it's even my own children, touch my flowers because they're precious to me. But over time, I'm hoping that at least one will take up the challenge because there aren't the growers there anymore. And that's a real shame. You know, I'm all for trying to get people to start growing them. If one of the three take it up, then I've done a good job.
To see Darren's allotment filled with dahlias is a very old-fashioned English sight. It's beautiful. But then, of course, they're beautiful in a border, too. Now, talking of borders, the other day I took the box hedging that surrounded the grass borders out and burnt it because it had box blight. And we all felt pretty glum about it. But the borders are better. Light has got in, we can see the grasses thoroughly. I think it looks much better without the hedge around it. I will be going over the borders, removing some of the dead material, splitting plants and adding some more plants to fill the space where the hedges were. So what was a pretty sad day, in fact, has evolved into an exciting opportunity.
Now, I've got another major task. This corner is a sun trap and has very free-draining soil, so it makes an ideal space for a dry garden. And at its best, it can and has looked fantastic. But in recent years, some of the plants have become unruly and have taken over.
All the gems that love this extreme drainage and baking sun have got crowded out. And what I'm going to do is what you can do in any border, in any situation, not just a dry border, is to take everything out that can reasonably be moved, take out all the weeds, refresh the soil, and then put back all the plants that I want to keep, and then see where the gaps are and think about adding other things. One of the biggest thugs is Acanthus mollis. For a few years, this would grow and then get knocked back in winter. It tended to be really hit by frosts in February and March, but of course we haven't had that this year. So the best thing to do is to cut off all this top growth. The roots, however, need to be extracted because every single scrap will grow back. This is getting a little wet. I think it's time for a cup of tea. And while I'm doing that, you can see Glenn Shapiro's stunning dry garden in Lancashire that Joe visited last summer.
For many years, rock gardens have been a popular feature. But what do you do if your garden is made of nothing but rock? Well, I'm here to meet a gardener whose pioneering spirit has created something really special out of solid stone. Here in Silverdale, North Lancashire, hard limestone has created a unique craggy landscape, so gardening here isn't for the faint-hearted.
But that didn't deter Glenn Shapiro and her husband when they moved here 32 years ago.
I remember him saying the disadvantage is there isn't a garden and there isn't even anywhere to put a garden. I just smiled quietly to myself.
You could see the potential, even though it was absolutely covered in scrub.
Oh, without a doubt. It was just a really exciting challenge.
Yeah.
Limestone rock is just the most beautiful rock for a rock garden.
Should we go and explore?
Yes, I'd love to show you it. There is a magical staging about a rock garden that you will never achieve with anything else. It's very, very sculptural, very three-dimensional. I was a sculptor originally, and that's the way I like to think of it.
The way you move through the space and see things in 3D.
Absolutely.
You've got very thin soil, and actually in a lot of the garden, you've got no soil at all, just pure rock. How easy is it to establish plants? If someone at home has got, the same conditions, how do you get them going in the first place?
I build up soil in the fissures between the rocks, and that's the good place to get your taller shrubs and dwarf pines and things going. And then there are what we call runnels, the narrower bits where the water is draining into the fissures. So you can get slightly larger plants, maybe dianthus and things going in those quite nicely.
They're almost like little containers.
Yeah,
They're like a little pot. So you're
absolutely.
gauging the plant that you can put in to the size of the hole. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And then when it comes to no soil, there's things like your silver saxifrages. Often just a bit of wet moss in a crack is enough to start them. They form a little carpet. You can break bits off. And I'll have a little spell of going around and sticking them in here, there and everywhere. They just look so natural in a garden like this. They're ideal. It's great
These
fun.
eryngiums, at the moment, they're stunning. I love the colour of them and the way they reflect the light.
This particularly dry area suits them very well.
Yeah. What strikes me is the range of plants you've got here. People would see a garden like this and see the limitations and think, oh, I can only grow a few things. But you've really extended that palette out to create an all-year-round garden.
Yes, definitely so. Well, I'm busy in it all year round, so let's have it looking good.
Now, I know the garden doesn't finish here. Should we keep moving?
Yes.
What a lovely spot this is, isn't it? It's like a destination point after, well, a mini climb, I guess. But it's almost like a garden in reverse, because up here you've got a traditional lawn and you've got a pond and a very different feel.
You don't see the rockery at all from the top. This is the sort of ha-ha effect. And then as you look over, it's a complete surprise again.
It reveals as though you would never know it was there from here at all.
I think it's just lovely to work with the materials you've got on site.
What would your advice be to someone who's got, well, let's face it, a pretty difficult spot to make a garden in?
Go with the landscape you've got. Make sure that it fits into the surrounding area and sits happily within it, and go for the plants that are happy in that terrain. Don't fight it.
Very good advice, I'd say. And you've created an absolutely stunning garden here.
I couldn't agree more with Glenn Shapiro. The best gardening advice of all is go with the conditions. Plant what wants to grow, and you're almost certain to make a decent garden out of it. Now, the rain has backed off. I have a feeling it might come back a bit, so I'm pushing on. Well, let's start with the hardest first. So the plan is to dig out the central core of this acanthus, take as much root as I can, and you can see that just slicing through, you've got these very fleshy roots, and every little bit will create a new plant, which is why I can be quite cavalier about chucking some of this away. I want to move on just to another plant. I've got some bearded iris here. They've been divided and moved, they're very healthy, but there is couch grass in amongst them. And while I'm revamping a border like this, it's tempting to leave the iris, but I need to remove the couch grass. Now is the time to do it. I'm being quite gentle because I don't want to damage the roots. And the less I can disturb them and the less I can damage them, the better. Now, you can see, look at all that couch grass in there. That's all got to come out. And couch is one of those weeds, like bindweed, like ground elder, that once it gets into a border, it can only spread. You're never going to contain it. See, I've just got a handful of couch grass just from this one here. Don't put this on the compost heap. And I can pop that up. But when you lift a plant out temporarily, you want to do so as an entity. So, for example, if we take this sedum here, which I can dig up and keep a nice root ball on it, a bit of tansy interwoven in it, which I'll gently tease out. If you can keep a root ball right round it, and we're giving this a little weed while we're about it, just checking, taking out the tansy out of the roots. It doesn't really matter what compost you use. It's rough and ready, but that will be good for replanting, as I say, for a couple of weeks, and it will hardly notice that it's been moved. Make sure that it's watered and in reasonable shade, and that can sit until you're ready to replant it. When I've refreshed the soil, I'll be putting back the plants I've taken out and also adding in plants, because here in the dry garden, it's really important only to put in plants that will relish baking sun and really sharp drainage. But that's it for this week. Bye-bye.